Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So, we are going to be looking at attribute points today. So, I've done a few videos on this kind of in the past, covering it, but things kind of keep changing, keep evolving. And I think it's something that we kind of need to touch on again to kind of discuss some of the changes and sort of talk a little bit where we are, because I've kind of changed a little bit and I think the gameplay has changed a little bit as well to kind of evolve around it. So, I used to, as a poleaxe player, I used to have all my points in strength. I went full strength layout. And I did that because it gave me the highest possible damage for my poleaxe. And the poleaxe already had pretty high slashing damage, and it was already sort of, well, as you can see, it's already 1791. It's already very high. And by doing that, it took me just to about 2000, something like that. So it made me a very strong individual hero. And I think at the time, towards the beginning of the game, that really worked quite well. Now that was mostly because people didn't have high tier units. You know, back at the start, seeing someone with prefecture guards was quite impressive because no one really had anything else like that. But as the time has gone on, more and more people have got higher tier units. You know, more people have got reapers, more people have got, you know, imperial spear guards, etc., etc., and the effectiveness of individual heroes as such has been reduced because there are lots more high tier units available. And so as it's become increasingly a unit game rather than an individual hero game, I think the emphasis has shifted away from hero damage onto hero survivability, because by surviving as your hero you can survive to command your units better. And by commanding your units you get more kills than you do as a hero. Or you know, you can be more influential. So I think that's changed a few things. So, to touch on that then, heavy armor users first, because I am a heavy armor user as a poleaxe. So this is poleaxes, long swords, short swords, a glaive if they choose to. Any heavy armor user, I think at the moment armor is probably your best attribute to be going in towards. I can get, with guardsmen, I can get just over 1,000. If I had some slightly better, you know, if I got some of these epic and better in the future going forwards, then as we recondition them, then that will get slightly better. You know, we may be able to get up to sort of 1,050, something like that. If that's slightly more defense points, it does seem to sort of exponentially increase as your defense points increase. You know, the amount of damage you take decreases quite a lot. So yeah, it's really worth putting into. But if you are a light or a medium armor user, then it's really not worth going into armor points, in my opinion, because it just doesn't escalate enough until you start getting towards that 1,000 mark, and you're just going to not really reduce your damage that much, and you're just reducing the ability for you to do damage in sort of other areas. There's only heavy armor users who want to be looking at increasing their armor. Toughness increases your hero's health. There was a phase when people were really up for this, particularly using it with long swords and maybe with Nadachi a little as well. But I think in terms of the total increase that gives you just isn't really enough. Yes, it gives you a little bit more health, but I think you'd be better off putting it into armor if you're a heavy user, and I think you'd be better going strength or agility if you're, you know, a lower if you're a medium or light armor user. I don't think many people are really going to be looking at toughness. If you are really obsessed with toughness, I think only maybe longsword and possibly Nadachi could be worth looking at. But generally speaking, I wouldn't bother putting points into toughness. Then that leads on to strength and agility. So moving away from armor types onto ranged units. So we're talking bows, short bows, muskets. Now your main damage, by and large, is going to be piercing damage. An exception to this may be, for example, the musket's bomb, which actually bases on strength damage. So you have to have a look at what your damage type is, because for example, because that ability has a strength damage hit. Maybe we can go and have a look at that. I'll show you what I mean rather than try to explain it. There we go. It's based on your blunt damage, black powder grenade. Yeah, so that is piercing, so that's based on agility. But this one down here, your black powder grenade, is based on blunt. So if we hop back over, and you'll see that strength increases your blunt damage. So for that skill specifically, lost it again. For this skill specifically, you do get a lot more damage if you increase strength, not agility, despite the fact that on basically every other skill in the musket tech tree, agility and piercing damage is what you want. So you do have to read pretty carefully about what you're trying to build your character around. But by and large, if you're a ranged user, going full agility, you know, you won't go too far wrong. So then that leads strength. So I think strength can work quite well with some of the lighter classes. I think like Nadachi is kind of quite a good example of that, where you don't really have the armor to resist the tankiness. There's something like Spear as well, where you're trying to do pretty decent amounts of damage. A lot of the Spear skills are slashing based. You know, it gets a few piercing ones, but by and large, it's actually based on slashing, despite that kind of being a little bit counterintuitive. You know, you have to look a little bit what build you're going to be going for. And the final thing you have to consider really when sort of building these skills is, are you going to be sticking to one class? For example, I'm quite happy with the poleaxe. I've not really got any plans to move at the moment. I certainly should probably, but it's kind of easy getting comfortable in a class you know. I have enough trouble trying to get used to different units to make videos. I don't need to start mixing my class up as well for me. So I'm quite happy with my armor layout. And plus, so long as I stick within the heavy armor class, you know, if I switch to a long sword, if you know, I switch to a short sword or something like that, then I'm fine because I'll stick with my armor layout. But if you are, say, you know, running with a short bow, and then you decided you want to switch to a poleaxe, and then you decided you want to switch to a Nadachi, then things start to get a little bit more complicated, and maybe a mixed point setup might be a better idea. You know, looking at putting a few points into strength, agility, and armor. I'd probably drop toughness, you know, particularly if you're going to go for a mixed point layout. It's not going to give you a lot, and it's just being of detriment to your other points. So a spread across the three can work, I think, if you're going for sort of if you're going to be regularly changing class. But I think that's something you want to know ahead of time, because I think you can do better if you really focus into one class. But I guess the final thing to say on all this is, don't stress about it too much. It's not that important. You know, the difference, each point of armor adds 3 points, for example. So if you consider I've basically gained, oh goodness, what's that, 70 points, 72 points, 70 points, 72 points in armor. Well, you times that by 3, we're getting a couple of hundred extra points in armor. So I'd be around 800 even if I didn't have all these in there anyway. You know, it's like a 20% increase. Yes, it is it is significant, but it's not that significant. It's not going to make that much of a difference. If you get caught in a corner and get overwhelmed by a unit of spear sergeants, you're going to die whether you've got the armor points or not. And a lot of this game is about troop command now, so don't get too hung up about it. You're not going to be a useless player if you don't quite get these point attributes stacked quite right, or if you run out of personal histories or something like that. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview, at least on my thoughts kind of on attribute point distribution. Do let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a lot more Conqueror's Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.